Welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Finished Homesteading. Today we're going to be talking about how I sharpen chainsaws. I've talked about it in other videos, but I hadn't actually done a video strictly on that. I'll have a little brief talk over about how I started with chainsaws, because when I was young I worked on farms and stuff a lot, but the area that we lived in, there were no trees to speak of, and nobody heated with wood because coal was prevalent. So it wasn't until midlife that I actually ended up with a place that had some property and wood on it, so I bought a saw. This isn't the exact one, but it's the same model. It's a McCulloch ProMax 610. I bought it in 1980. It was 2 years old at the time. I paid $35 for it. This one I bought later on, but that's what got started with wood heating. And I would only cut about 4 to 5 cords of wood because I only heated occasionally in the evenings and stuff, and that was plenty good. But since I didn't know a whole lot about chainsaws, I made the typical mistakes that everybody did. So instead of learning to sharpen a chain, I would do what this other poor fool did here. Got this off Craigslist. It's really a nice saw, but it's a 1979 and it's not really had a whole lot of use. And you see, we got all these chains here. So when a chain would get dull, he would just go and buy another chain. And between all of the chains here and the one that's on here, that's probably close to $120 worth of chain. But since I'm thrifty, or cheap, that's not what I do. I went through the learning curve and figured out how to sharpen the chains, so I'll be back in a second here. Well, we're back. Well, the first thing we need to do is determine what size of chain our saw has on it. If you buy a new saw, you have an owner's manual that's going to tell you. And the new saw is on the bar, the chainsaw bar, usually stamped what type of chain it is and even how many drive links for that length. Now this one, probably won't be able to see it, but on the drive teeth down here there's a real small number. But if you can't see it, what you do to determine is that you measure between 3 riveted links here with a caliper or something from center to the 3, like so, and then you divide it by 2, and then you'll come up with a size. And so the 4 most common sizes are 1/4 inch, which is used on small homeowner saws and some arborist saws. Stihls and a lot of others use 0.325 inch. And the other thing you need to know is the width, the thickness of the drive teeth. Like in a 3/8, which is the most common size, you'll have 3 widths on the drive teeth. You have like 50 thousandths, 58 thousandths, and 63 thousandths. And then on 3/8 chain, there's a 3/8 low profile too for low horsepower saws that keep them from kicking back too. And then the larger chain is 404, and that's used on the big saws. So once you've determined what size chain, then you'll need to figure out what size file you need to cut the tooth on it. So on a 1/4 inch it's a 5/32 file, 325 is a 3/16, and on a 3/8 and a 404 it's 7/32 of an inch. Be back in a second here. I have to zoom in on this. This is a 1/4 inch pitch chain, the smallest one. There again, a little homeowner saw. This is our little John Deere 40. The thing that's funny about this saw, it says 40V, which is supposed to signify it's 40 cc. but it's actually only a 35 cc, so they cheated us out of 5 cc. So if you're like me, you're all upset about it. Not really. Anyway, that's a small chain. And you can see the difference between the 3/8 and that one. The teeth are much bigger. And there again, this one is pretty well worn out, but a great cutter. It's a 3/8 skip tooth chisel bit also. And then the next size we use up is for big powerful saws like this one. This is referred to as 404 chain. There again, a skip tooth chisel bit. And it really works good for me. Plus it's a nice big powerful saw here, 100cc saw. This is 55 cc's, 35, and the McCullough back here is 60cc. So generally 70cc and bigger uses the 404 chain. Mid-size saws use the 3/8, and little weenie saws like that one use 1/4 inch. So there you go. Okay, well, we're ready to do the final sharpening here. Here's the things that we're trying to establish. The main thing, we'll use a round file like this to cut the tooth and the gullet, cut the sharp part of the tooth right here. And then on the raker, it has to be lower than the top of the cutter. So a lightweight, low power saw, be at 20 thousandths of an inch. General purpose will be 25 thousandths of an inch, and a big saw will be at 30 thousandths of an inch. And you can see that the tooth has a slight downturn in the back from level here. That's so the sawdust and stuff can come out, and the gullet here lets the sawdust out so you have a clean cut. Now the tooth itself has a 35-degree angle, and that's important to keep that. So here's a picture of the tooth. There's the raker, which determines the height of the cut, the cutting face, and the gullet, the dip, and then the top plate. So we'll get ready here. Use our high quality saw holder here. So the first thing we're going to do is establish a tooth that we're going to start, so we can mark that to know where we're starting at, and when it comes around we'll know we've gone one complete revolution there. So the two ways you can do it, I started out using a round file like this, and you can still do it that way, but it's hard to maintain it because it moves up and down. You can go this way and that way and stuff, and so it's hard to keep a proper cut with it. So the other thing that you want to do first before you do anything is use a raker gauge like this, and that'll the raker itself sticks through, and if you need to sharpen it, say this one has been sharpened already, so you do that on every tooth. Get back here, that one catches a little bit, so a few swipes there until the tooth is even there. Okay, that's good. So anyway, you'll continue all the way around, come back to your first mark here. That's what I like using. I bought this from Stihl, and what it does, two things. It has a round file for cutting the gullet and the tooth, and it has a flat file for cutting the raker, so you do them both at the same time. And you can see there's guides on here to keep that perpendicular with the bar here, and then you want to keep about a 10% down like that. So let me get my gloves on here. And the reason I use orange here is if I cut myself and bled all over it, then I wouldn't know which tooth was the one to start with. So I don't know anybody who has orange blood. So what we'll do is we'll hold this, put this on here, get this lined up so it's go across here like this. That tooth has already been done, so we'll go to some teeth that haven't been done here. There again, you have about a 10% down. Now that tooth there, you can hear it needs a little cut there. But as you cut, and then it gets so it's really easy. That's how you tell when it's sharp. And then you maintain your angle like this. The important thing too on this is to rotate the round file a quarter turn about every 4 or 5 teeth, so you get a clean surface. The vibration will knock out the chips in the file there. So anyway, you just go completely around. Then you turn the saw around just the opposite way. Turn your file over and stuff, and then you can go the opposite direction. And don't leave the file in there all the time. When you pull back, you want it away. That'll save your file. Now these are made by a German company called Pherd, P-H-E-R-D. If you look on the internet, you can buy them cheaper than buying a Stihl because you're paying for the name. And the files in these are the best files I've ever found. This file here is a Swedish file that Oregon sells, and it's pretty good. But there's some real cheapo ones out there from China that are worthless. So this one's an old Nicholson here I've had for years and years, and works perfect for cutting these rakers. So anyway, let's take a look at some chips here. You can see what nice big chips I'm getting. So finding it the way I'm doing actually works really good. You can use a different type of filing on a square cut, which is a little bit more efficient, but all this equipment would be useless on it because you have to learn a whole new filing technique and stuff. And this type, the round tooth cutter chain like I have on all my saws, is the most common, and you can see what a great job it does. So watch some of my earlier videos on chainsaw work and you'll see these things cutting like crazy. Well, we're going to talk just briefly about the saw stuff here. Since we run and collect old saws, we also collect old equipment. So here's a new old stock McCullough file, still new in the package. And this one's really one of my favorite ones. This is a Pioneer service kit. This has a file. Here's the handle, a raker gauge, a scranch for taking out the spark plug, loosening the bar and adjusting the chain with a screwdriver, and a carburetor adjustment screwdriver. So it's nice to have all this vintage stuff. You'll see that I've got my McCullough shirt on and my Pioneer hat. Those are the two main saws that we use on the homestead because everything that I've purchased to replace them has failed. And so the other saw we use quite a bit, besides the little Pioneer here, that's a nice little saw. One thing on this I should talk about briefly is on the master link here it's painted so you don't have to paint it yourself, and I thought that was a great idea. That's original Pioneer chain. This little partner's been an exceptionally nice saw too. I have just a couple of them, but they're right up there as far as design and everything else. They're every bit as good as the McCulloughs, maybe even better in some years than even the Pioneers. So anyway, vintage is better. Always collect good junk to go with your junk. See you in the next video.